Well, I wanted to address this lineup in the sky that we can see at the moment of Venus and Jupiter. And if you haven't actually gone and taken the opportunity to go and have a look at Venus and Jupiter together in the sky at the moment, I would definitely recommend you do so, because it is very beautiful to look at. And yes, it is very significant. However, I am seeing a lot of information regarding this lineup that I can't really find any factual information to support this. And this information includes that this Venus and Jupiter alignment is the Star of Bethlehem and signaled the birth of Jesus. And so, again, we really do have to be aware of disinformation. And although this alignment is very significant, it isn't actually the Star of Bethlehem, because the Star of Bethlehem is in regards to the 17 card in the major arcana, which is the star card, which is the illumination of the divine race. It is when Orion's light returns after the tower. Just look at the major arcana. It is prophecy in each card being told in symbolism. And when you know how to look into the tarot, then you understand what the tarot is really for. And it was never a divination tool. That was just something you can use the tarot for, but it was never its intention. It was to hide information. And so this is how the occult knowledge is hidden. And so this is what the Star of Bethlehem does actually connect to in the symbolism. And so these two planets aligning, although they're very beautiful, it is not the Star of Bethlehem. But it almost, again, just really shows me how people are so easily swayed into these beliefs. And because something sounds interesting and something sounds good, everybody just believes that this is the case. And to me, I really do think, if you want to see this and perceive this as the Star of Bethlehem, is to just see it as another indication of what's approaching us. It's just another rare alignment because of where we are in the cycle. Now, even though it's not as rare as some are saying, it is quite rare because it is at the end of the cycle and it is part of a 24-year phenomenon. So it is something that isn't always seen, but we have to look at it in the context of the larger cycle and what it means. Just like the Venus transit was the last transit of this precession as well, which is why the Queen took the opportunity to do all of her celebrations in regards to her 60th Jubilee, Diamond Jubilee, which was all very ritualistic and symbolic. And this is because they look to all of these stars and these alignments for their understanding of what is going on in the cycle as well. So this just does indicate another part of the cycle that we've now reached, and also the Antichrist will be aware of this alignment and the truth to this alignment, because you can be sure that locked up in the Vatican, they have the absolute understanding for where we are exactly in this cycle, which is why they can play their script out when they choose to, at the time they choose to, because they have an understanding for where they are in the cycle. And so this is why when you see the space weather start to increase, you see their activity start to increase, they start moving ahead with their script as well. They're timing it all to the space weather. And so this will be something they see as significant. Obviously, they'll know that it's one more indication of where we are. Unfortunately, people don't really see this for what it is. They think, oh, it's beautiful, it's the Star of Bethlehem, and they go and have some belief of what they think this all means. And they really don't have any understanding at all of what all of these indications are, because they don't want to face the facts of what's approaching us. because they'll see this beautiful Venus and Jupiter dance together tonight, but then they don't want to follow through on the theory of why that might be happening. And that's because we are moving towards the Ragnarok. We are moving towards the return of Kronos. And this is where I lose people with my information, and where the cherry pickers just decide that they'll dismiss that part of the information. They'll look at everything else I find, but then when it comes to this part of the information, this isn't applied to their experience. This doesn't apply to them at all. And so basically, when I do see people just dismiss this part of the information, I know where they're at, and I know the amount of work they've done, and I know how seriously they take themselves. And so if I see that they have been in possession of this knowledge for at least over a year and a half, 2 years, and still they do not want to accept this part of the information, well, I just remove them. I just basically do my own cleanup and remove the tars, so that they can go and keep believing what they want to believe. Because anyone that's informing themselves with the knowledge by now is starting to understand what the fuck is going on, what's approaching, why they're acting the way they are, why they're getting ready for World War III, what's coming. And basically we're preparing on all of the levels of consciousness, spirit, soul, and basically physical as well, as best we can. But really, I would suggest the consciousness aspect, the mental aspect of preparing, and the spiritual soul part is very much more important than the physical at the moment. That's really where you've got to go into, and you've got to start having a connection for, once again, for that instinct. Because really, they're only going to keep telling you what you want to hear. And they're just going to keep giving you stories that sound great, packaging it all up. And yes, you know, the scientists are now your gods, because basically that's what's happened. Modern man has just exchanged God for now the white coat scientists. Even though most of their theories are just theories, and a lot of them fail most of the time. So, but it seems the appearance of the white coat and knowledge and letters after someone's name or in front of someone's name, and they've gone to these prestigious universities, well then that must mean that they're knowledgeable, even though these universities are actually constructs of the establishment and the organisation that want to keep mankind ignorant to who they are, and so give them their own educational program that removes the spirit part to the equation. And so this is why we have science with no spirit and religion, and we have religion with no science and spirit. And then when people see Einstein's quote where he says that religion is blind without science and science is lame without religion, people are really threatened by that quote, and they don't understand it, because they now see religion as what the Antichrist have turned religion into. They don't understand he's talking about the spiritual side, the philosophy side that alludes to your spiritual nature, and that's the other side of the coin. And so to get a full understanding of science, you have to see both the science and the spirit and bring them together. That's what Einstein was talking about. That's what the Antichrist Rome have managed to do, separate that into two different areas. And so people have only one side of the story, and then they actually pit them against each other. And so the scientists call the religiotards stupid and ignorant, and then the religiotards tell the science people they're going to hell. And it's just this never-ending cycle of hate and competition between the two of them, which is exactly what the Antichrist have wanted to do. So people just need to really wake up to how we're being played by the Antichrist, and see that, and then bring the two together, the science and the spirit, and be a conscious and intellectual soul instead of walking around half blind like the rest of the cattle. Because seriously, That's the only way people are going to get through what's approaching mankind. And mankind are just, sleepwalking towards their demise. Well, actually, they've got their heads down on their devices and they're not looking around them anymore, and they're fully hooked into the matrix and to that source of information being their reality, and they're just continuing to walk towards the cliff that the Antichrist know is there, and they're just laughing and just helping them along. And so people need to recognise that. And so we should see these events as significant because they are signalling a part of the cycle that we are in, but we have to view these types of articles about calling them the Star of Bethlehem as something that they are trying to relay to people because they want to make these alignments insignificant. And I suppose when they do make them to be something like the Star of Bethlehem and then nothing really occurs, it just again puts people into a false sense of security. And that's just not how it is going to play out, because it plays out with the tower first. That means going to hell and everything just going and falling to complete shit, hell, chaos first, brought on by an external event. If we have a look at the cards, actually shows you it's external, knocks the crowns off divine man and woman too, meaning everybody is completely shaken from their foundation. It is a complete shaking, and this is law once again because we've got the stone and the tower, which is made of rock and stone, and that is symbolic for law, for God's law, for unchanging law. We've got the clouds rolling back. You could see these clouds shown here, and basically that's what we have to experience first before we are going to experience the Star of Bethlehem, which is the next card. So I would suggest people go and get the Rider-Waite deck and get to know the Major Arcana, and then get to know the Minor Arcana, but more importantly, the Major Arcana is where it's at, and the Minor Arcana is just really helping to camouflage the information in the Major Arcana, because that's where the main bones of the information is left for us. So that's what's basically approaching, that everyone is just completely unaware of, except the Antichrist are not unaware of this. And as I said, that's why they change their script according to what's happening with the earth changes. And we're seeing heaps of earth changes. I mean, there's so many volcanoes going off at the moment, it's not funny. And we're just continuing to see more and more huge changes. There is a cyclone now just off the Solomon Islands in the southern hemisphere, first one ever in July ever seen. And so these changes are going to continue because Ragnarok is approaching, and people just have to clue on, and it's just a matter of time of people actually identifying what's happening, and it will just be one by one. So people will just wake to the fact that they can't keep justifying and ignoring the changes to their environment. But until then, they'll just get dragged along with the hive mind. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring your attention to this because I did think it was very significant, and I do recommend going out and having a look at it. This article actually gives the best information that I've found so far, so I'll put this underneath as well. And I'll leave it here. And as always, peace out.